In today's lesson, we're going to write linear equations in slope-intercept form. You will be given the slope and then finding the y-intercept. So let's review the steps in writing the equations. Remember, step 1, you're going to find the slope. Step 2, you're going to find the y-intercept. And in today's lesson, we're going to be substituting and solving for the b, the y-intercept. And then number 3, we're going to just put it back into the form y is equal to mx plus b. All right, so write an equation given the slope and a point. So notice how we've got the point 2, 5, and a slope of 3. This is always my x coordinate, and this is always my y coordinate. So the first step, remember, is to calculate the slope. Well, we're given the slope of 3, so we don't have to do it there. Step 2 is to find the y-intercept, and today we're going to be looking at this step right here, the substitute and solve for b. And then we'll write it into the equation of y is equal to mx plus b. So let's start with that y is equal to mx plus b. And what we're going to do is we're going to plug in what we know and we're going to solve for what we don't. So we know that it's going through this point 2, 5, and we know that it has a slope of 3, but we don't know where it's crossing on the y-intercept. So let's plug in our 5 for our y. I have a slope that's 3. I have a x that's 2, and then I'm going to now, I still don't know what my y-intercept is. But I'm going to simplify here, and I should be able to then find my y-intercept. All right, so we want to get b all by itself. So I'll be subtracting the 6, and -1 is equal to b. And now that I have the slope and the y-intercept, I can write this back into the y is equal to mx plus b. Y is equal to our slope we know is 3. And then I have a y-intercept of -1. I'd like to take just a minute to show you what this looks like on the graph with the information that you were given. And you don't have this in your notes packet, but I would like to kind of show you what it is that we just did. So what we were given is we were given a point 2, 5, and that's right there. We're also given a slope of 3. So from any point that has been plotted, not just the y-intercept, but any point that's on the line, you should be able to take the slope and graph it. And so notice how here is our line that has a point of 2, 5, and it has a slope of 3. Notice how it is going through the y-intercept at the -1. So we're not going to do that each time, but I just wanted to make sure that you understood what it is, the information that you're given. All right, number 2. All right, we've got the point 7, 2, and it's got a slope of 4. So let's go ahead and let's label our coordinate, x and our y. And again, the first step is always to calculate the slope. Well, I have the slope, so let's go to the second step. Find the y-intercept. And again, today we are substituting and solving for b. So I like to always write my equation y is equal to mx plus b. It just helps me plug in the right parts. So I'm going to start with my y. I have a 2. I know I have a slope of 4. And I know I have a point x, which is 7. But what I don't have yet is my y-intercept. So I'm just going to simplify here. All right, so now we need to get the b all by itself. So I'm going to minus the 28, and what I do on one side, remember we have to do on the other side. All right, so my y-intercept is -26. So let's take these two parts and we're going to plug it into our equation then. So I've got the y is equal to my slope of 4, my x, and then my y-intercept is -26, so I'm going to put negative or -26. And if you had a slope of a positive, you put the plus. And there's nothing wrong with doing plus and negative. It just, this is probably the better way of writing it, but either way will be just fine. All right, so our last one, we have a point of 9, 15, and then we have a slope of -1/3. So we already have our slope, but then we are going to find the y-intercept by substituting and solving for the b. Again, I like to always start with this y is equal to mx plus b. If you get stuck on something, writing equations, or whenever it's linear, just go right back to this y is equal to mx plus b. And we're going to substitute what we know, or plug in what we know, and we're going to solve for what we don't. So I know I have a 15 for my y, and I have a slope of negative 1/3, and then I've got times 9, because that's my x, plus b. We don't know what b is yet. All right, so we have negative 1/3 times 9. And if you're struggling with those fractions, just plug it in your calculator. So that's going to give me a negative 3. 1/3 of 9 is 3, so and I had a negative. And now we're going to have our 15. All right, so we're trying to get that b all by itself still, so I'm going to add the 3. And we'll have 18 is equal to b. All right, so now we have everything we need to write the equation. We've got the slope and we've got the y-intercept. Now we just have to plug it back into this. So y is equal to, I have a slope of negative 1/3 and x, and then I have a y-intercept of 18, so I'm going to have plus 18. So in this lesson, we took a look at how to write a linear equation given the slope and a point.